This video guitar lesson is how to play the A chord on the guitar. I will start off with the most popular or textbook way to play the A major chord. I don't actually like to play it this way, but many people do, so I'll show it to you. And then I'll show you how I like to play it, plus several different ways, some easier ways, some more complex ways, so that you can get the sound that you want. Let's get right into it. So this is the traditional or textbook way to play the A major chord. And you start off by putting your first finger on the second fret of the D string. And normally you play the guitar with your finger as close as possible to the fret, but you have to make room by bringing your first finger way over here so that you could put your second finger on the G string on the second fret and your third finger on the B string on the second fret. So what you want to do is get your third finger as far as possible over this way, as close to the fret as possible. Not on the fret though. Like that. And then your next finger is squeezing right up against it and right above it, and then this finger is squeezing right against that one right above it. You want to make sure that your first finger doesn't touch the A string, otherwise you'll have this kind of sound. And you do have to squeeze this finger, press it down a little harder since you're over here. The further you go this way, the harder it is to press down. So that's one of the challenges of this way of playing the chord. And you're going to play the first 5 strings. You're not going to play the low E string. So when you're first learning a chord, it's good to play one string at a time, like this. And then you can hear if there's anything wrong. If you just play it all at once, you can't really tell if you're missing something. So if you play one string at a time, you can find out if maybe your fingers aren't curved enough. They need to be very curved, because if they're flat, then you might be muffling the A string, or you might be muffling the high E string, because the high E string is played open. So the A string open, and then second fret on the D string, G string, and B string, and then the high E string is open. And make sure your pinky is not touching the high E string, but it's kind of hugging the third finger there. And behind the neck, my thumb is pointed up. So you don't want it down to the side like that. You want it pointed up. And this is how I like to play the A chord. I use my second finger on the second fret of the D string, my third finger on the second fret of the G string, and then my pinky on the second fret of the B string, like that. So I'm not using my first finger. And so if you have really big hands and you're finding that the traditional way that we just played the A chord is not working for you, this may work because your pinky is smaller. So I would give this a try. So I find that way a lot easier, but here's another way. So you can put your second finger on the second fret of the D string, and then your first finger under it on the second fret of the G string, and then your third finger on the second fret of the B string. If you're a beginner and so far this has been difficult, here's a really easy way to play the A chord. So you can put your second finger on the second fret of the G string, and then your third finger on the second fret of the B string, and just have your first finger and your pinky up in the air like that, and just play the first 3 strings of the guitar like this. So that is an A major chord because it has all 3 notes that make up the chord. and that's great for beginners. And if you're playing a song and the next chord is a D chord, and then if you're going back to the A, you could just use your first and second finger like that. Might be a little easier to switch to the D chord. Or if you're going to an E chord, it might be better to use these fingers. Then you can just come up here like this. If you want more low end or bass in the chord, you can play what's called an A power chord, and it's just like this. So all you're doing is playing the A string open, and then you can put your second finger on the second fret of the D string. And that's all you need to do, but if you can, put your third finger on the second fret of the D string, like this. And that adds a little more to the chord. And then if your next chord is E, you can just jump up right here like that, and then you're at an E. Here's how to play another A power chord. So this one, you put your first finger on the 5th fret of the low E string, and then your third finger on the 7th fret of the A string. And if you can, put your pinky on the 7th fret of the D string, like that, and that adds another note. And then eventually you want to get to where you could put your middle finger on the 6th fret of the G string. And that's good practice to get you ready to be able to play an A bar chord, which uses all 6 strings, and it's like this. So what I'm doing here is I get my first finger and I put it on the 5th fret, and it's playing not only the 5th fret of the low E string, but this part of my finger, you can probably see some lines there, is playing the 5th fret of the B string and the high E string. And that's how I'm able to play all 6 strings. So I have it like that, and then I add my fingers here, just like in the last chord we did. And that's called an A bar chord. And if you're having trouble with that, I'll put a link to a video in the description where I teach a very simple exercise you can do every day. And if you do that, before you know it, you'll be able to play almost any bar chord. So please check that out. Another thing you can do is, instead of barring your first finger like that, you can play just like we did in the last chord, but bring your first finger down here like this. And this is just like an F chord, if you know how to play that. But it sounds like this. So that's the 3rd finger on the 7th fret of the A string, and the pinky on the 7th fret of the D string, and these 2 fingers are squeezing together like that. They're helping each other. And then the middle finger is on the 6th fret of the G string. That's like that. And then we put the first finger here on the 5th fret of the B string. And you could play it just like this. But if you can, put your first finger down and bar it right there. And you'll notice my fingers are not perfectly straight like this. They're at an angle like that. And usually my thumb is very straight, but it's slightly going this way a little bit. another similar way to play the A chord is like this. So I have my third finger on the 7th fret of the D string, my middle finger on the 6th fret of the G string, and then my first finger on the 5th fret of the B string. Or I could leave out the D string and just use the first 3 strings of the guitar. So I could put my middle finger on the 6th fret of the G string, and then my first finger on the 5th fret of the B string and the high E string. So it's like that. Well, I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. My name is Brett, and if you'd like to watch more of my videos, just search Guitarincrease. Thank you very much.